Welcome to Primeau's Prosperity Principles.
In your words, what does prosperity mean, and why is it important to get switched on in order to live a prosperous life?
When you say the word prosperity, what hits me really is just a feeling that you have done well by serving others and you have prospered through that endeavor. Being switched on, it's an interesting term. It really came back when I was living in Australia back in '93. I was part of, I got a call from a good buddy of mine, wanted to promote Tony Down Under, and he said, hey, can you teach us the model to come down here and fill the room? And so that wasn't too difficult a decision to make to go down to Australia for the first time. So when I was down there, I have a very high energy level from the front of the room and try to live my life that way. I had a couple of my friends said, oh, mate, you're switched on. Good on you, switched on. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it was good by the tone of their voice and the way they responded to me because, you know, there's just so many people, I think, especially with the economy tough, a lot of people are switched off. You know, they're kind of in a daze. You can just tell they let that down moment turn into the down day, turn into the down week, and they easily get off track. So being switched on is, you know, really being at your best, but it's about having the ability to switch other people on. It comes down, I think, really managing your energy and how can you do that. Some people just, you know, need to get plugged back into their passion so they can get switched on. They're in a survival mode, maybe in a survival mindset. They're not thinking, so I think, hey, 2011 right now, we can have a great year. But you've got to decide you're going to make it a great year and what that means to you.
Excellent. So what would we do day to day in our activity that would help us? Can you give me 3 things that we should do that we could be proactive with that would help us be able to follow that mindset and stay switched on?
Okay, a couple things I think in terms of preparation. You know, you've got to make the concerted effort to start the day. Whether you're a leader, for example, I think the leader really sets the tone the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of the day. Interesting, I was speaking at a leadership conference here the other day, and a woman said, you know, what I used to do when I used to come into the office is just make a beeline right into my office. Hi, 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 hi. And she emailed me back saying, just taking the first 5 minutes to go out there, made sure when she hit the floor, I mean, she was in a good mood, touching people, encouraging people, just really connecting those first 5 minutes, how that transformed the energy of her team, but also what it did for her. And then also, for example, the last 5 minutes of the day. But she had to make a decision that she was going to prepare herself to start that day. Big picture chunk, I think it starts out to what's your compelling vision. You know, what do you really want to accomplish this year? What's going to get you excited? Obviously, you know, from scripture, without vision, the people will perish. So you've got to have something that's going to kind of pull you forward through the tough times and remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. Hope is not an effective strategy right now. I mean, if you're just hoping things are going to turn around, they might not. You've got to prepare. So part of that comes down to just little things. For example, with the vision, I don't know if you can see this. Here's my compelling vision for 2011. And I've got it broken up and I've got it laminated and I have that hanging in my shower. A little bit of water behind this will stick on any tile or glass. So each day I'm focusing on some faith, family, marriage, health, vitality, fun, experience, personal growth. Because the danger is if you put it in a drawer, easy to forget. So that would be tip number 1. Just get really, really clear. What else is preparation? I mean, well, you've got to say, hey, I want to have a high energy day. I want to be switched on today. What does that mean? Well, how can you prepare? Part of it is going to be if you're going to exercise, put your stuff out the night before, right? Basics. Helps to have a gym membership, obviously, or just get outside. Aerobically oxygenating your system, because aerobic exercise, it's funny in my audiences, I ask them, hey, what does aerobic mean? 1 out of 500 people means, because you think air, aerobically oxygenate your system will really help you. So if you're going to start your day, if you can get even 20, 30, I've got a little mini trampoline over here that my kids love to bounce on that I just, you know, just to get the lymph flowing, get the body moving a little bit, aerobically, Stairmaster, treadmill, whatever you're going to do, aerobically getting yourself ready. Could be preparing. I'm a big believer in treating your body as a temple, for example. So some of the things I studied with Tony Robbins was talking about an alkalized system versus an alkaline system. And the basic premise I learned from him was that disease will not exist in a, quote, alkaline environment. Every living thing has a pH balance. You know, not to get crude, but you can get these little strips at the drugstore. You actually pee on those things, and you can look at the color and say, hey, where am I, acid or alkaline? So I've got a smoothie recipe, and if anybody, will give my email address later, but if you go to YouTube, for example, put in Eichelberger and smoothie, you'll see a video of me making the Get Switched On smoothie. Yeah, you got to go out and get this stuff. You may have to cut it up. You may need to be prepared. Preparing, I'm a big believer in, to do that. Big salad, small entree, for example. Most people do small salad, big entree. So you got to prepare. You got to make your salad interesting. You got to have the ingredients. You got to take some time, cut it up, get the kids involved. That's just an example of preparation. Having, water around all the time to drink to help hydrate your system. Just little things like that. I've got a lot of professionals that I speak to are constantly on the go. A lot of consumption, nothing good to eat around. What will you eat? You'll settle for anything. Having just a little mini cooler. There are times when a six-pack is warranted, okay? But I'm just saying when you're running around, if you have a cooler with maybe some celery and some peanut butter, some apples or carrots or, just high-energy stuff that's good for you, you're likely to eat it. So that's just an example of preparation, I would say. Just taking control, looking what's the outcome I want to get, how can I make that outcome much easier to attain by just simply preparing. Could be just, hey, I'm going to listen to X. You can't be willy-nilly about what you're listening to or what you're reading. You got to make sure you have it there.
Well, this is away from the physical aspect of how we're getting switched on, maybe to a little bit more of the psychological aspect, and that is to ask a significant person in your life how you could be a better husband, how you could be a better father, how you could be. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That was one of my friends, Marshall Goldsmith, great author. Just a quick story. I traveled probably 100 days a year. I'm home 265, 24/7. And he had talked about his kids when he did the same kind of routine. He was traveling a lot, went to his daughter, Terry, I believe, and asked her at 9 and said, hey, honey, I'm curious, what can I do to be a better daddy? And she said, well, Dad, I got to tell you, I know you have to travel and that's what you do and you're gone, you work late hours, but I don't mind that so much. What I really mind is the way you act when you're at home. Gosh, you talk on the phone a lot, you're on the computer a lot, maybe watch a lot of sports and news on TV, but you don't spend enough time anymore playing with just me, being with me. And he was stunned because he looked at her and he knew she was right? And he said, hey, Daddy's going to do better. And it's just the power of that question. I remember when I asked my Davis, or he's 11 now, I think it was about 5 or 6, we're just, running around and said, hey, Davis, I'm curious, what can I do to be a better daddy? He said, well, no hesitation. You play more time with me on the trampoline. If you've got young kids, that trampoline with the protective sides, that thing's the bomb, right? I knew jumping with him, he loved it, but I didn't know that was the #1 way he judged me as a dad. Good information to have. I've got my list right here, actually, of, you can't see it, but I've got my 13 little things, because I asked my wife, what can I do to be a better husband? And she thought about it and said, well, gosh, let me think about that. Came back with 13 little things that I needed to do more often to be better. How does that relate to leadership? For example, most people who are in a leadership mode is the old model of telling people what they can do. And Peter Drucker says the leaders of the future are not going to have to tell, but they're going to need to ask. So if you're in a situation where you are a leader at your company, go to somebody who's worked with you for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and say, you know what, Helen, you've worked with me for 5 years. You know me better than anybody. What can I do to be a better leader? How can I be more effective? And the key thing there, of course, is to shut up. Part of preparation is be willing to keep score, I think, on what are the little things you do every day, whether it's going to be, hey, I'm going to commit to reading 12 nonfiction books this year. Get a list, 1 through 12, knock them out. I'm going to write 10 personal thank you cards this week. Well, let's knock them out. Make sure you get them done. So it's documenting those little things so it becomes a habit of what you're doing.
If people want to get a hold of you and ask you any questions about this video, how would they do that?
You can just email me at chip@getswitchedon.com or 866-224-1393.